All right. First couple days of school, did we talk about domain and range? Yes, in association with what? The parent functions, right? We talked about a lot of domains and range associated with parent functions. And with parent functions, a lot of our domain and ranges were like negative infinity to positive infinity, right? There are quite a few of our parent functions that had negative infinity to positive infinity. And even if it wasn't negative to positive infinity, part of that was infinity, right? Maybe the range had some infinity, but not the other side, or maybe domain had some infinity, but not on both sides, right? So that's great that we took the time to talk about that, right? That's important. But what about if it's not a parent function? What if it's just some regular graph? What if it's not even a function? Right? So that's what we got to start talking about today. Okay? Now, specifically today, we are focusing on interval notation. When we did parent functions, we did interval notation and inequality notation, right? So we said negative infinity to positive infinity, and we also said all real numbers. Okay? The all real numbers part is what we're not doing today. We are concentrating on interval notation because that's the one that was new to you guys. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's look at the front page here. There's 6 examples, so let's go through those together. You ready? So let's look at this first one right here. Talking about domain, we're thinking how far left does it go? How far right does it go? So what do you think? How far left does it go? To 2. And how far right does it go? 4. To 4. So is it okay if we write like this, from 2 to 4? Is the 2 included as part of the domain? Does the graph touch 2? Yes, so what goes on the 2? A bracket, right? Does the graph touch 4? How do you know for a fact that it doesn't touch 4? What's there? An open circle, right? It's telling you it gets all the way up to 4, but it does not touch 4. When that circle is an open circle, that means it's getting up to 4 but not touching it. So what do I have on 4? A parenthesis. Everybody okay with that? Okay. So what about the range? How far down does it go? -2, and how far up does it go? 2. So is -2 included? Well, first of all, let's go ahead and write it this way. -2 to 2. Is -2 part of the range? Okay, so I heard one person say yes, and I heard one person say no. The good news is that one of those is correct. Okay, what do you think? Does the graph touch -2? How do you know that? Because there's an open circle. So what goes here on -2? Parenthesis. Does the graph touch +2 in my range? No, and you know that because? Open circle. So what goes here? Parenthesis. So is this even a function? And do you remember how to tell? I'm seeing some people nod their head, I'm seeing some people shake their head, and I'm seeing some people look at me like I have 3 heads. Right? Because you're like, I don't remember how to tell. Can I remind you? Is that okay? It's called the vertical line test. Some people call it the pencil test, and that's fine, as long as you remember you have it vertically on the graph. If I slide this pencil from left to right across this coordinate plane, is there any point in time where it touches the graph in more than one place? Right here, right? Isn't it touching the graph in more than one place right here? If it touches the graph in more than one place, is it a function? No. So is this one a function? No. Any questions about that? Okay, let's look at our second example. Because all these graphs are different, aren't they? Okay, look at our second example. What's my domain? How far down does it go? How far up does it go? All the way down? And? Oh, wait, are we talking about domain or range? Is it easy to get our words mixed up sometimes? Yes. So let's be very clear that we are talking first about domain, right? So if we're talking about domain first, we're saying how far left does it go and how far right does it go? That's weird, right? Because it doesn't go left. It's at -3. Do you agree with that? And it's at 2. Is it anywhere else besides -3 and 2? No other x values are represented, only -3 and only +2? Yeah, so there's a couple ways we can write this. Okay? We can actually use this kind of brace and write -3 and 2. And this kind of brace on the other side. It's not a bracket and it's not a parenthesis, is it? It's like a pretty brace. And if yours don't look pretty, that's fine. Okay? You're not getting graded on how well you can draw your braces. This time. No, I'm just teasing. I won't do that. No. Now what? For the record, you can also write -3 and 2. But do you see why some people prefer this way over this way? Okay. What about the range now? What directions are we thinking of for range? Down and up, right? And we said a second ago all the way down and all the way up, right? But what about like right here? Look at the way my finger is moving. Isn't this domain I'm worried about? Isn't left and right domain? It's down and up that I'm worried about right now, right? If I go all the way down, as I'm coming up, when it gets here, it just jumps over here, but it keeps going. So what's my range then? Absolutely, absolutely. -infinity to +infinity. And remind me again why we have parentheses on infinities? Because we don't know which stops, do we? Okay, so we always use parentheses on infinities. Is this a function? How many points is it touching right now? How many points is it touching? Bam, 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 bam. Isn't it touching all of them on this side? So is it a function? No. Are you okay so far? Okay. So look at the next one, the next example. Oh, this is different. It's not a graph this time, right? So we have to think a little bit different. What's domain again?
X values.
X values. So what X values are here?
3, 5, 7, 8.
So we're going to use our pretty braces again and say 3, 5, 7, 8. Those are the ones that are there. Do you see why I don't want to write it this way this time? Because it would be this with the 3 and this with the 5 and another U and this with a 7 and another U and this with an 8. No, no thank you. What about the range?
7, 7, 9.
So I just heard two different answers. I heard 6, 7, 9 and then I heard 6, 7, 7, 9. Do we have to repeat values if they repeat in the points? No, no. Okay. So braces again. 6, 7, 9. Now, because of the problem, the way the problem was set up, we don't really have this discussion unless I force it, and I need to, so I'm going to force it. Okay? How are these numbers listed? Well, they're listed how they were in the points, right? Because it happens to be the way we need to list it. But what if this 5 right here was actually a -5? Would I still write 3, -5, 7, 8? Because I have to write them how? Yeah, least to greatest, right? So it would be -5, 3, 7, 8, even though it's in a different order in the points. Do you see why I had to force the conversation there? Because it's already least to greatest in X's and least to greatest in Y's. But we needed to make sure that we know that that's happening, right? How do we tell if a list of ordered pairs is a function or not? We can't do vertical line tests because it's not on a graph, right? I guess I could draw a graph and plot all the points, but we don't want to do that, do we? Repeated values where? In the X, right? I don't care if all of the y's are the same exact number. That's still fine, because that's going to be what? That's going to be a horizontal line, and we know horizontal lines are functions, don't we? Okay? It's any of the x's. Are any of the x's repeated? No. So this is yes a function or no a function? Yes. If any of the x values repeat, it's not a function. But if no x values repeat, then it is a function. Okay? All right, what about here? What's my domain here? How far left and how far right does it go? -5 to 5? Okay, -5 to 5. Now I'm not writing with the pretty braces anymore, right? Because those are really when there's like a dot, only like an ordered pair. Or if it's like this, where it's only, the only values are that number and that number, right? Okay, so what do I need around the -5 and what do I need around the +5? So how do I know the difference if it's brackets or parentheses?
It's filled in.
It's filled in, and because it's filled in, it's a bracket, isn't it? Now what about my range? How far down does it go?
-1. Or wait, no, -3.
That's okay. -1 is where it crosses the axis, right? But I just need to know how far down it goes, so -3. And how far up does it go? 2. What goes around the -3 and what goes around the 2? Brackets on both sides, right? For the record, I don't know why my 2 is so much higher than the -3. Sorry about that. Okay. Is this a function? Yep, it only ever touches my pencil at one time, right? Yes, it's a function. All right, what about this one? What about my domain? How far left and how far right?
-5 and 5.
-5 and 5. Wait, you're telling me this domain is exactly the same as this domain? Those graphs don't even look anything alike. Is that allowed? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You can have different looking graphs and different... And in fact, what I said was incorrect, right? Is this exactly the same domain as this? No, because why? -5 has an open circle, so it should have a parenthesis. What about 5?
Bracket.
That's a bracket. Very good. What about the range? How low does it go?
-2.
And how high does it go?
2.
What goes on the -2?
Parenthesis.
And why do you think it's a parenthesis?
Because it's an open circle.
Because it's an open circle. But what about this -2? Isn't that -2 part of the domain? I mean, part of the range? Yeah, so because it's not here, but it is here, then it is for the whole graph. Does that make sense? And what goes on the +2? Bracket, because it's on the 2, right? Okay. Is this a function?
Yes.
Correct. All right, last example. How far left, how far right?
-5,
-5, -1. Are both -5 and -1 included, or is one not included? Should it be brackets or parentheses?
Parentheses.
It doesn't touch -5? Does it touch 1? It touches both of them, doesn't it? Sometimes, I will admit, it's hard to tell, right? But if it's got an open circle, for sure it's parentheses. If it's got a closed circle, for sure it's a bracket, right? But if it's something like this, we're going to say it's touching -5, we're going to say it's touching -1. And if you ever have a question, what should you do? Ask. We can have that conversation. That's fine. Okay? What about the range? How far down and how far up?
2.
-2 and 2. Does it touch -2?
Yes.
Why not? open circle, right? So that's a parenthesis. And does it touch 2? Yes? Because if it touches -5 and it touches 1, then -1, then it also touches 2, doesn't it? Okay? Is this a function? No, right? Right now, isn't it touching right there and right there? So no. Okay? Any questions on this? All right, I need you to circle some problems for me. Would you do that? Circle the following problems. Would you please circle number 2 and 3? Would you please circle number 7 and 9? Would you please circle number 10 and 11? Would you circle number 13, 16, and 18? Would you circle number 19? Would you circle number 21, 22, 23, and 26? Any questions?